Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Growing up, I can't recall a single moment when our parents treated Amanda and me equally. It was always understood, though never openly admitted, that Amanda deserved the best, and I should be happy with whatever was left over. This wasn't just about getting fewer gifts or having to share. It was about a pattern that permeated every corner of our childhood. I'd find myself on the sidelines, watching Amanda take center stage, and after a while, I stopped expecting anything different. Take our birthdays, for example. When Amanda turned 10, she got an elaborate backyard party, complete with a rented pony, a magician, and a custom cake shaped like her favorite cartoon character. I remember standing there, excited to see her happy, but quietly wondering if I'd ever get anything close to that. 2 years later, on my 10th birthday, all I got was a store-bought cake and a card. No party, no gifts wrapped in shiny paper. Just a quick happy birthday before they rushed off to take Amanda to her violin recital. It's not that I was ungrateful. It's that no one even asked if I wanted more. No one even considered it. I never fully understood why Amanda got such preferential treatment. Was it because she was more outgoing, more traditionally pretty, more charming? My parents never explained, but it became clear they had expectations for us that were wildly different. For Amanda, the world was a stage, and she was their star performer. For me, I was a backup dancer. Someone who should stay in the wings and not make too much noise. One of the worst memories I have is from a trip to the shopping mall. I must have been around 8 or 9 years old. We were supposed to be shopping for Amanda's birthday dress, and I was tagging along because, well, I always had to tag along. At one point, Dad told me to stay put by a bench while he and Amanda went into a boutique. He promised they'd only be a few minutes. I sat there, watching people pass by, waiting and waiting. Minutes turned into a half an hour, and then an hour. I started to panic. I was just a kid, and I didn't know where they'd gone or how long they'd be gone for. I remember a kind woman finally asking if I was lost. Right before she was about to call for help, Dad came back, carrying bags of clothes for Amanda. "What's the big deal?" he said when I burst into tears. "We were just shopping. You're fine." That moment sticks with me because it wasn't just about being left behind. It was about how easily I could be forgotten. School events were no different. If Amanda had a play or a recital, the whole family would show up. They'd take pictures, cheer loudly, and shower her with flowers and praise. But when I had something, like the time I won second place in the school science fair, Mom and Dad barely acknowledged it. I remember carrying my certificate home, beaming with pride, only for Mom to glance at it and say, "That's nice, dear," before immediately turning her attention to Amanda's latest dance routine. It was as if my achievements didn't matter, no matter how hard I worked. So that was my childhood. Over time, I stopped trying to compete. I learned that no matter how well I behaved, how hard I worked, or how much I accomplished, I'd never be Amanda. I'd never be the one they spoiled, the one they cherished. I was just the other daughter. When Amanda got engaged to Justin, our parents were over the moon. They loved him almost as much as they loved Amanda. Justin was sweet, a little shy, and completely devoted to her. The wedding planning kicked into high gear, and our parents poured their hearts and their wallets into making it perfect. Amanda was at her happiest, basking in the attention. I did what I always did, handled the small tasks and stayed out of the way. At the time, I'd been dating Michael for about a year. He was a photographer, calm and funny guy, and I thought we were a perfect match. He got along well with my family, including Amanda. Looking back, maybe a little too well. He and Amanda were friendly, sharing jokes and chatting easily. I brushed it off as nothing. Amanda was charming with everyone. It wasn't unusual for people to enjoy her company. A week before the wedding, Amanda called me over to help with some last-minute details. "Justin's out of town," she said, "and I need a hand organizing stuff." I didn't think much of it. I'd been running errands for her all month. What was one more? I showed up at her apartment, let myself in, and called out her name. When I turned the corner into the living room, I stopped dead in my tracks. There they were, Amanda and Michael, kissing. My stomach flipped, and for a second, I thought I might be sick. Amanda looked at me with the face of a winner. Michael pulled back, his eyes wide. He started, but I didn't wait to hear it. I turned around, grabbed my coat, and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just left. That night, I sat on my bed staring at the wall. My head was spinning. Why did Amanda do it? She knew I was coming. She knew I would catch them. It looked like she did it on purpose to show who's the winner and that she will always have it all. How could she do this? She had Justin, who adored her. She had a wedding days away. She had everything. Why would she need to take Michael too? And Michael, how could he betray me like that? I thought we had something real. I replayed the scene over and over in my head, trying to make sense of it. But there was no sense to be made. I felt hurt, humiliated, and so incredibly angry. The next day, I confronted Amanda. I asked her why. "It's not a big deal," she said with a shrug. "It just happened. Don't blow it out of proportion." I couldn't believe her. She wasn't even sorry. If anything, she seemed annoyed that I'd caught them. That was the moment I knew I couldn't let this slide. Justin deserved to know the truth. When I told him, Justin didn't take it well. "You're making this up," he said, shaking his head. "You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of Amanda." His words were so painful to hear. For a moment, I doubted myself. Maybe I should have kept quiet. Amanda always wins. When the big day finally arrived, the venue was a picture of perfection. Our parents had gone all out. Flowers spilling from every corner, a string quartet playing softly in the background, guests dressed to the nines. Everyone looked thrilled to be there, chatting and sipping their champagne as they waited for the ceremony to begin. It seemed like the kind of magical day that Amanda had always been destined for. I stayed toward the back, keeping my head down and trying not to draw attention. Amanda, of course, was front and center, glowing in her bridal gown as she posed for pictures. If she was nervous, she hid it well. Our parents were beaming, circulating through the crowd and making sure everyone felt welcome. They were so proud, so sure that their golden daughter was about to have the wedding of a lifetime. As the guests took their seats, the string quartet transitioned into the bridal march. Everyone stood, craning their necks to catch a glimpse of Amanda. She appeared at the end of the aisle, looking stunning, exactly as you'd expect. My parents stood in the front row, wiping their eyes and smiling as Amanda began her walk. But then we all noticed something was wrong. The groom wasn't at the altar. At first, people seemed confused. A few whispered to each other, glancing toward the front of the room. The officiant, a kind-looking older man, shuffled awkwardly and glanced back toward the side doors, as if Justin might suddenly materialize. Amanda stopped mid-step, looking uncertain for the first time all day. Her smile disappeared. She turned slightly, as if waiting for someone to signal her that it was okay to keep going. But no one did. The whispers grew louder. Someone in the second row leaned over to their neighbor and murmured, "Where's the groom?" A guest in the back pulled out their phone, maybe thinking they'd missed a last-minute change of schedule. Amanda's closest friends, her bridesmaids, exchanged uneasy glances. They clearly had no idea what was going on either. Amanda took a hesitant step forward, then stopped. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for Justin. She turned toward the officiant, who gave her a helpless shrug. Someone in the audience coughed awkwardly, the sound echoing in the hushed space. The quartet, sensing the tension, had stopped playing entirely. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, one of Amanda's bridesmaids, a childhood friend, leaned in and whispered something to her. Amanda started panicking. Her eyes widened, her face paled, and then the tears started. She clutched her bouquet tightly, almost as if she were trying to keep herself from collapsing. She turned and bolted down the aisle, back toward the door she had just entered through. The bouquet slipped from her hands, landing on the marble floor. A ripple of shock swept through the audience. People turned in their seats, craning to see where Amanda had gone. My parents immediately jumped up and followed her. Dad tried to keep his composure, but I could see his anger. They disappeared through the doors after Amanda, leaving the guests stunned and murmuring. No one seemed to know what to do. Some guests stood, unsure if they should leave. Others remained seated, hoping this was just a temporary hiccup, and somehow the wedding could still be salvaged. The bridesmaids huddled together, whispering furiously. A few distant relatives started speculating out loud. Did Justin get cold feet? Did something happen on the way here? No one had answers, and the confusion only deepened. I stayed glued to my seat. Amanda, the girl who always seemed to have it all, had just run out of her own wedding, and Justin was nowhere to be found. For once, the spotlight she so often basked in wasn't kind. Later, I got a message from Justin. It was short, just 2 words. Thank you. That was all he said, but it was enough to know he understood and believed me. Meanwhile, Amanda was at home, crying and furious, blaming me for everything. She kept saying that I'd caused this, that it was all my fault Justin left. Hearing about how broken she was didn't make me feel any better. Even though she brought this on herself, it still hurt to see her so shattered. But the truth had to come out, no matter how painful. Sounds like a real mess. Amanda made her own choices, and as much as she's blaming OP now, it's only because it's easier than admitting she screwed up. It's not OP's fault that Justin decided to leave. It's the consequences of her actions catching up to her. I know it must feel isolating to have your family turn on you, but sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone for a while. At the end of the day, Justin saying thank you shows he understands that OP was looking out for him, and that matters. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Man, Amanda really burned that bridge, didn't she? It's wild how some people will always blame someone else instead of taking responsibility for their own actions. I'm actually impressed you kept your cool. I think I'd have lost it seeing that kind of betrayal. But yeah, no wonder she's blaming you. She probably doesn't want to admit she blew up her own life. I think it's telling that Justin reached out and said thank you. That really shows he understood you weren't just stirring up trouble. You were protecting him from making a huge mistake. My, female, father found out that my mother had an affair many years ago with his brother when they were still together. My father became suspicious and pressured all his children to take a DNA test. I was the only one of the 4 who was not the biological. This screwed up my relationship with my father. I visited him every weekend after the test results. He cut the visits. He always gave some money for his children, but for me, he only gave what was obliged by law to do. All of my brothers got a car and a trip to another country, gift divided in half by my parents. I only got trip, because that's what my mother managed on her own. It hurt to see my brother, 1 year younger, win everything. From 1 month to the next, I lost a loving, present, and helpful father. And every time I pointed this out, he told me to understand how hard it was for him to see the fruit of my mother's betrayal and to see that she lied to him for years, taking advantage of the similarity between him and his brother. For over 5 years, he barely spoke to me beyond the basics and excluded me from everything, parties. It hurted a lot. After 5 years, under the influence of my stepmother, he had more contact with me, but we were no longer the same. Our relationship has always been rocky after that. The situation. I'm getting married to my beautiful bride in a few months, and we're getting ready for the ceremony part. My father insisted on giving a value, high, to help, and although I didn't want to, I ended up accepting it as long as there was no charge from him. Somehow, I think by one of my brothers, he found out he wouldn't walk me down the aisle, and he had a meltdown. He said that this was our moment as we planned it when I was younger, and that it was his dream to walk his only daughter down the aisle. At some point, he talked about helping out at the party, which was the trigger. I said he forfeited that right by setting me aside for 5 years for something I wasn't guilty of, so I prefer to go alone. He again began to say that I should understand his feeling, and that it was a very difficult time for him, and that he accepted me. I exploded, saying that I didn't give a crap about his feelings, because he just ignored that he raised me for 17 years and treated me like it was an obligation. He looked shocked, and he left. My stepmother called me later saying that I broke my father's heart doing and saying all this, and that he is human, he can make mistakes, and that he was trying his best to make up for lost time. Am I the a-hole? Extra. No, I didn't want to have contact with my uncle, father, because I never met him and I never felt the need, because he knew he was my father. He and my father fought, and he never wanted to have contact with me. We followed each other on social media. For those who are asking about my mother and if she's going to the wedding, she passed away 3 years ago, so I don't think this aspect makes any difference. She'll have a seat in her honor, because I want to, and that's it. Not the a-hole. Your father took out his feelings of betrayal on an innocent child. That's on him. He was hurt by your mother's betrayal, and then took that hurt out on a child. Not the a-hole. He needs to show some accountability for his actions if you're going to have a good relationship. That is solely on him, and not you. Not the a-hole. He was the adult, you were the child. Yes, he was suffering, but you were still his responsibility, not just for stuff, but as a parent and for your mental and emotional health. He made the choices to abandon you when you needed him. That did damage that he can't expect to just disappear because he wants it to. He can't expect to have the rewards of good parenting when he was a bad parent to you during those years. Actions have consequences. He did this, made those choices, hurt you in those ways. So this is a long one. I, 30 female, have a boyfriend, 30 male, and we dated in high school, then drifted apart as young people do. We started talking to each other and became friends again while he was still living with his then pregnant fiancée, 29 female. I was there for him while they were going through a really rough patch. Before they broke up, she'd show up wherever we were at and confronted me multiple times about our friendship. I assured her nothing was going on and it wasn't good enough for her. She's had a vendetta against me since then. They broke up, and I don't know many details, besides her fleeing and hiding for months with the baby after he was born. This was during virus, and the custody hearing took a very long time. When he finally saw his son, it was at a center where he had to be supervised with his baby. It was really cruel. During the time she cut my boyfriend out, our relationship grew, and we moved in with each other. She then randomly started asking for money for the baby. We both told her that if she couldn't afford to keep the baby full-time, that we could take the baby. If she had him full-time, she needed to be financially responsible for him. Before this was finalized, the mother and me met in person, because she said she wasn't comfortable with her son being around someone she didn't know. I thought things were smoothed over, but obviously not. She has never liked me. She and my boyfriend threw a joint birthday party for their son, and I was not invited. She may think I'm petty, but the day after the party, I served her with papers for my boyfriend to contest child support payments. She opened the door, and all I said was, "I'm sorry," and like a child, she laughed at me and slammed the door in my face. I feel like all of this resentment has been building up between us both, and have tried my hardest to not have any bad blood with her. So this is where I need to know if I'm the a-hole or not. She recently confronted me about some social media posts that one of our mutuals told her about, and believes are aimed at her. I had shared some posts regarding child support and custody things. It basically said that if a parent is keeping their child from another parent and using them as a pawn, it's aggressive. She told me to stop inserting myself in their affairs, whether it's custody, child support, or her son. She said I don't know what she's been through and sound ignorant. I told her I'll insert myself where I see fit, and if she believes my posts are aimed at her, that's on her. This was all over text, and she never replied to me after I said this. I think she's an a-hole for being rude to me when I've done nothing wrong. But I don't know, Reddit. You tell me, am I the a-hole? Yes, the a-hole, because their kid is none of your ducking business. Also because the circumstances of him breaking up with her and getting with you sound more than suspicious. She doesn't want you around her kid's birthday. Fine, it's her choice. You getting all angry and petty about it. What the duck? And even if it's none of your business, your boyfriend does have to pay child support. Yes, the a-hole. Why are you serving her papers and not the boyfriend? This is not your problem to force to a head. Your job is to support the boyfriend in his choices. Sounds like you don't know the whole situation either. Court-ordered supervised visits means something happened. Asking for money to support the child isn't crazy and doesn't mean she should give you the child. You sound petty to me. Sorry, OP. You're the a-hole. Yes, the a-hole. She is entitled to child support. Your boyfriend is required to pay. I say this as a father who pays child support. If there was a custody hearing, then support should have been established. That's her asking your boyfriend to fulfill his obligation, not a show that she can't handle it. Then after all that, your boyfriend and her still held a joint birthday party? Yes, those are his and her affairs, not yours. You're not listed anywhere on the birth certificate. You haven't adopted, so it needs to be your boyfriend and her affairs. You can still support him, be there emotionally, but it needs to be him dealing with her. Edit. A lot of people have brought up concerns about us having an emotional affair. We were only friends. I told her that I'm not the kind of woman to break up a family. It's not my fault they broke up and then things progressed fast between us. We were high school sweethearts, so all of those feelings rushed back once he was available. Also, people are asking why he has supervised visits. I don't know. He doesn't talk to me about it, so I leave it be. Also, just my social media posts were not aimed at her. If I thought those things, I'd tell her directly. Also, I served her because my boyfriend asked me to. Was I supposed to say no? After the way she's treated me? It's not fair. I've been more than accommodating with her, and honest, and it gets me nowhere with her. So I'm going to stand by my man. Edit. This is my last edit, and it's in response to why he has supervised visits. She mentioned aggression, but I know him and he would never hurt a fly. She said he supposedly threw a car seat at her. He probably threw it out of anger and it landed in her general direction. She's constantly exaggerating things to get things to go her way. I'm not a side chick or just some little girlfriend. We've known each other over a decade. Just because I don't have a ring doesn't mean I'm not important enough to include in major life decisions. A few years ago, my dad had a pretty public affair. They thought they were being discreet, but everyone knew. With a woman about 15 years younger than him. My father was up until this point a very stoic, unemotional person, and this was totally out of character, and everyone was talking about it. He ended up leaving my mom for her. My mom was totally ice cold during all of this, and even as her son, I can't gauge if it hurt her or not. She had zero reaction. She's never said anything bad about him. Even when I tried getting her to open up, she just wouldn't. But this is around the time I began dating my fiancé, and she doesn't like her and began to ice me out as well. My dad married his affair partner recently, and I proposed to my fiancé. We had an engagement party, and it was probably the first time we were all together. Mother-in-law and her friends hate my dad and his fiancé because I think they worry about their husbands getting ideas. Mother-in-law made a snarky comment about how when men leave for a younger woman, isn't she supposed to be prettier? And my dad might have done it wrong because my mom is much more attractive. All of her friends laughed, and my dad's wife looked like she was dying inside. My mom told my mother-in-law to stop, and she doesn't like women who pit women against each other, and said his wife is beautiful. When we walked away, I told my mom that was very gracious, and I was proud of her. I wasn't even talking to my fiancé, but she lost it. She said I was gross for praising my mom for being gracious, when she should be being a petty bee. She said I was an affair apologist, and it made her nervous, and that I should have been laughing at her mom's comment. My fiancé is still upset I used those words, and keeps saying it was sexist and 1950s, but I can't really explain. Your mom is the wrong party, so everyone should take her lead. The fact that your fiancé thinks public humiliation when it is someone else's event is okay is a red flag. You should be worried she'll pull petty BS on you, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your mom handled it in the way she felt was appropriate for her own character and morals to handle it. She chose to keep it classy and not make a scene. She's the one who gets to choose for herself. Even if she's internalizing, that's something she can talk through with people she trusts or a therapist. She does not have any obligation to display her pain to those people. Not everyone has to turn themselves into an ugly person because something ugly happened to them. Your mom is a class act, and you were right for telling her so. Not the a-hole. Your mom has class. She's right. Tearing others down to make oneself seem big just shows how small that person really is. Your mother-in-law is mean. Her daughter endorses this behavior. Your fiancé will be just like her mother now in the future. Think about what you're getting into and how all family activities will be in the future. You know your fiancé will bar contact with your dad and his wife by you and your offspring. Really think about this relationship. Listen to your mom. Your fiancé is an idiot. First, a bit of background info. My mom, 50 female, lost her mother really young, and her father was more of a father to the children of his mistress. As a result, she has this constant fear that I, 25 female, will abandon her too, and this insecurity only got stronger as I got older and more independent. Nowadays, I live 5 hours from her, in the same town where my fiancé's, 28 male, entire family lives. Even though I do my best to visit both my mom and my dad, who each live in different states, a couple times a year for a week at a time, it's clear that my mom is extremely jealous of the time my future in-laws get to spend with me, just out of inconvenience. It's gotten to the point where I have to lie to my mom if I'm hanging out with them, or she'll feel that I'm replacing her with a newer, better, unbroken family. A week ago, my fiancé and I announced our wedding date and venue, which is future sister-in-law's backyard, and my mom has been depressed ever since. She feels that because the wedding will be on their home turf, she is now at a significant disadvantage in playing a central role in the wedding. She feels like she's in a competition that she's already losing. In reality, my in-laws aren't competing for anything. All they know is that their only son and future daughter-in-law are getting married, and they're elated. Now, about the dress. A few years ago, even before the engagement, my mom pulled out her wedding dress and asked me to try it on. She was over the moon, taking lots of pictures, positioning the train just right, the works. The thing is, she was 9 months pregnant when she got married. It does not fit me, and it's not my style. I told her as gently as I could that I'll be looking at other dresses for my wedding, and she understood. Shortly after the engagement, my mother-in-law let me know that her wedding dress is always available to me if I wanted it. The dress is gorgeous. It is exactly what I'm looking for, and it fits me perfectly. 0 alterations necessary. You see where this is going. But this isn't just about a pretty little dress. Shopping for my dream wedding dress together has been something my mom and I have talked about my entire life. When we went prom dress shopping, my mom and I traveled across states looking for the perfect dress. Shopping for a wedding dress could have very well become an international pursuit. But there's still a chance for that. There will be a second wedding, 5 years from now, where my fiancé and I will be going all out, dream dress and all. Still, all my mom sees right now is the present, and right now, she sees herself losing her only child to somebody else. The news about the dress would absolutely devastate her. Maybe it's silly to be thinking so much about a dress, but it's more about my relationship with my mom than anything else. I'm just worried I'll make a decision that will break her heart and damage our relationship forever. So, would I be the a-hole? I recommend counseling for your mom. If she won't go on her own, go with her. This issue is far deeper than any dress could possibly fix. She needs to learn how to cope, rather than making everyone else walk on eggshells. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. But you need to set serious boundaries with your mother and express concern for her putting her trauma onto you. You're the child. It is not your responsibility to protect her feelings. Putting you in that position is parentification because it makes you responsible for her, and it is massively inappropriate that she makes you feel guilty for abandoning her by having connections with your other family members. Not the a-hole. I get it. You want to prove to your mother you will always be there, but you probably have been doing this for a very long time. And unfortunately, the very slightest choice could push her over. You have to live your life for yourself, and your mother should love you unconditionally and respect that she raised a great daughter.